Tonight on the Daily Wrap, we have news from South Carolina that the Senate there has voted to remove the Confederate flag, 37-3. Will the House follow suit? Some presidential hopefuls are going on the offensive against Donald Trump. Wait till you hear his response. Team Hillary admits they're worried about Bernie Sanders. The question is why? And the Greek debt crisis hits a critical level. We have the latest. This is the Daily Wrap, live from New York City. And welcome to the show. I'm Joe Concha along with my co-host Rick Unger. How was your fourth weekend?
It was wonderful. Spent time with the family, the grandkids, and slept. That was my weekend. It was perfect.
Quite a combination. What time do you sleep till?
Well, Friday, all hours. Saturday, just part of the day, and Sunday was grandkids' day.
Okay, you seem refreshed.
I feel great. I feel great.
It's going to be trouble for our other panelists, I have a feeling. Speaking of our other panelists, former Navy SEAL and congressional candidate, he is Carl Higbie. He joins us, looking well. And finally, he's the editor of thewisdomdaily.com, and you're not. Brad Hirschfield in the Hizite. Okay, everyone, let's get right to the Daily Download. And 2016 Republicans are taking aim at Donald Trump, condemning the billionaire hopeful, referring to Mexican immigrants as rapists and drug dealers.
To paint with that broad a brush that Donald Trump did is, I mean, he's going to have to defend those remarks. I never will, and I will stand up and say that those are offensive, which they were.
He's doing this to inflame and to incite and to draw attention, which seems to be his organizing principle of his campaign, and he doesn't represent the Republican Party or its values.
Now, Mr. Trump never wanted to back down from a confrontation, took aim at Governor Perry and Bush on the Twitter. To Perry, here's what he had to say. Rick Perry failed at the border. Now he's critical of me. He needs to get a new pair of glasses to see the crimes committed by illegal immigrants. And to Bush, Jeb Bush will never secure our border or negotiate great trade deals for American workers. Jeb doesn't see and can't solve the problems. Oh, and Trump threw this in for good measure. Jeb Bush has to like Mexican illegals because of his wife. Trump later deleted that tweet. Wonder why. At this point, what's the best strategy for Republicans? Attack Trump or completely ignore him, Mr. Unger?
This is, you know, first of all, nobody ever accused Donald Trump of having class. Let's be clear about that. It's
something, though.
It is. It's a real problem. I mean, the best thing that can happen for the Republicans, keeping in mind that it was just 2 years ago that they issued a white paper that made it very clear if they wanted to win the White House in the future, they were going to have to find a way to enlist, to bring in Hispanic voters. This is not helping, to be sure. The thing that's going to probably save them is that Trump will likely be out of this race before November, when it's time to file the real financial report, which he won't do, and that will give them a year to try and win people back, because right now he is killing them with the segment they need so badly.
Carl, do you think that people hear this and they say, oh, Trump represents the Republican Party, or Trump's just some outlier wild card who's just speaking off the cuff but doesn't actually represent the party?
Well, I think the thing we need to look at here is that Donald Trump, nobody else has jumped in the polls as he has. Nope. So he is saying
Bernie.
something. Oh, yeah, well, Bernie.
You mean Republican
I'm talking
side.
on the Republican side.
Right.
But the fact of the matter is people like the fact that he is taking a stance. No politicians ever take a stance on anything firm. Okay, so
Sure
when
they do.
Well, not like this though.
Yeah,
Because this guy
there's
is,
a reason. They're not crazy.
But he is actually telling it how it is. And then that girl who was murdered in San Diego or San Francisco or something.
San Francisco.
San Francisco. That just reinforces it, and it just helped him more in the polls. So the fact of the matter is, we need to. I'm glad he's in the race. I don't think he can. I think he's got a 0% chance of winning. But I'm glad he's in the race, because he's going to say the stuff that's going to need to be addressed by the rest of the
But
candidates.
he's not telling it how it
Right,
is.
that's the key. He is not saying
lying.
it how it is.
Right.
But I do think you're on to one thing about people, and it's why we'll get to when we talk about Bernie, because it's related. People right now in America would prefer an authentic circus act to what they suspect is an inauthentic but more intelligent political act.
Correct.
Say no more.
But that's pretty tragic. If we've debased politics, this isn't a right thing or a left thing. If we've debased politics to the level that people would prefer what they see as an authentically held admitted circus act, because the Donald has always been in business for one and only one person, and it wasn't for the Republican Party, and it wasn't for the American people. Donald is in business for Donald. That alone means he doesn't have a future as the President of the United States. But that the electorate is paying the kind of attention they are to him is something we should pay attention to.
We reap what we sow. And think about all the debates of past years. And what's the one thing that always comes out of every debate? What was the zinger? What did Lloyd Benson say to Dan Quayle? What did Obama say to Romney?
People are entertained, but there is a limit, and this is the problem, Carl. He's not telling it like it is. He is telling it the way roughly 10% of the public wants to hear it, and that's why I suspect he's maxed out on his polls. What he's got right now, more than likely, is what he's going to have at the end of the day. People who think he's telling some great truth. If you look at the facts, if you look at the data, yeah, there are some bad people who come over from Mexico. But guess what? There's some pretty bad people who were born right here.
Absolutely. But even people who may not completely agree with his policy are agreeing with the fact that they're like, this is the guy who's going to come in and actually do something that he promises.
What's he going to do? Do you really, let me ask you, do you really believe that he's going to build a wall between us and Mexico and get the Mexicans to pay for it?
Well, I don't know if he's going to get the Mexicans to pay for it.
You can't
he will build that wall.
Fine. Is he going to get the Mexicans to pay for it?
Probably not.
Then he's not telling the truth.
But he will build the wall, and he will do his damnedest to get them to do that.
So he's telling half the truth.
No, I think what he's going to do is he's going to impose all types of measures on them to try to make them pay for it.
Could he really have stopped Ford Motor Company from building that factory in Mexico?
Probably not, no.
Probably not.
And
So he lied about that,
I would
too.
advocate him to not do that because of
I don't
free
care.
enterprise.
He said that's what he would have done. He lied there. He's lying time and time and time again to tell people what he
is it a lie if he says I'll have the Mexicans pay for it? Because we don't know that's a lie because that's a hypothetical.
We know it's ridiculous.
No, it may be worse than a lie. It
Yeah.
may be an insane fantasy.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. We're spending too much time on trying to get inside his head. The issue is when he opens his mouth, at least 75% of the time, it's irresponsible. It's not about agree or disagree. He's grossly irresponsible. I don't care if he's lying or just crazy. It needs to stop.
I think we could all agree on that it isn't presidential.
No.
To say the least.
So right now it's entertainment because it's not serious because we're so early. But then once it gets closer, if he's still in it, it's a reality show. Americans love reality shows.
And let's not forget, just as a coda on this, that this constant thing about him bringing it up and up and up again, it's only good for him. It keeps him in the news. Otherwise, he wouldn't be in the news.
Yep, we're going to end it on that note, at least that part of this segment. While Trump is showing strong in the polls, the latest CNN poll shows him second nationally only to Jeb Bush. Is this his peak? Rick says yes, probably. It's not going to get too much better. But more importantly, Rick, let me ask you, what does this say about Jeb Bush, who has taken extreme exception to Trump's remark that he's even responding, that he feels he even has to address him? But I guess if he feels if he doesn't address him, then it's as if he's saying what he's saying is okay.
Actually, good for Jeb Bush. And as I've been saying all along, he is going to be the nominee of the Republican Party.
You say that with a twinkle in your eye.
As that bears out, I think that will hold up. But look, and you know what? Trump probably said something at least sort of true when he said Jeb's saying that because of his wife. Well, yeah, so what? I would too. Because his wife is from Mexico, and she's not a rapist, and she's not a horrible person. She's a lovely woman and it's his wife. What does Trump expect? Trump seems to think that nobody else should stand up for their family except for him. He's really showing himself to be every day a despicable human being, and it's unfortunate.
He's rude. I mean, at best. But the fact is, he is what people want. People want to hear a hard line, whether he's lying or not. People want to hear that I'm going to stand up for America first and screw everybody else right now.
So Christie should then benefit, therefore, because he's also brutally candid. Not to the point of Trump, but at least he tells it like it is.
He's slick like sandpaper, as the governor says. No, I think you're right. I think the irony is here, the people who are in that 10%, even it's a little bit more that Rick's referring to, that really like this, actually are going to get much more or less than they bargained for, because he is an imperial, dictatorial personality, which is the exact opposite of what those who support him claim to want.
I don't think he would govern by constitutionality to the extent that it should be.
Well, executive order are all the rage these days. Anyway, The Hill is out with the latest ranking of 2016 Republicans. It shows Bush is in the lead, but Donald Trump is also in the top 10. Is Trump a true contender? One month before the debate, we're saying maybe now he's making some noise, but probably not so much. So what do you think at home about Donald Trump? Well, we want to hear from you. Go to newsmaxtv.com/comments. That's newsmaxtv.com/comments. facebook.com/comments. Let your voice be heard. We'll read a couple of letters on the air. We'll go out to the coast, have a few laughs. It'll be fun.
Have your people come my people.
Yes.
We'll put it together.
We want this to be an interactive
bring
kind
Trump.
of thing.
We'll
More and
bring
more.
Trump.
We'll bring Trump. Have
it'll
you
be
ever
blessed.
met Trump?
I have, yes.
Oh, you have? Okay.
Yes.
Well, we'll hear that story after the break. Anyway, much more after the break. Plenty to talk about tonight. Please do stay tuned. And welcome back to Daily Wrap. I'm Joe Concha, joined by my co-host, Rick Unker, and filling out the panel tonight, Higby Hirschfield. All right, we have some breaking news on Bill Cosby. We'll go to the guy who has the law degree in the room. Apparently this happened during a deposition, and it's pretty big, Rick.
Yeah, it's now coming to light that in 2005, Cosby gave a deposition in a case where he admitted to buying Quaaludes and using Benadryl to knock out at least one woman. This was the woman who was suing him. During the deposition, Cosby said, and I will read it to you, that he had purchased the ludes with the intent to give them to women, plural by the way, to women he wanted to have sex with. He also said he had given Constant, who was the plaintiff in this case, 3 half pills of Benadryl.
That picture's perfect that we have up, by the way, right now with this. With
Yeah,
reading this.
yeah. Now the case was settled, so we don't know what the settlement was, but you know, do with that as you will. But that's certainly not good news to come out for Bill Cosby, is it?
Rick, I don't think that in the court of public opinion anyway,
Yeah,
that anybody's really giving
it's
him a benefit
over.
of the doubt.
No, nobody wants to, and probably with good reason. So.
Carl.
Liberal logic, he's still on TV and Dukes of Hazzard is not.
Wow.
That's
Yeah.
interesting.
Cosby Show wasn't pulled
Wait a
by
minute,
Nick.
why is that liberal logic?
Because, I mean, look.
I disagree with
you're not
pulling
gonna-
the other
you're
show,
not,
too,
You're
but-
not going to pull the black guy off TV, but you're going to take the time and tried and true,
Where is he still on
great
TV?
rated. I was flipping through the channels the other
was
night,
on?
and he was on. I was like, what? I mean, he was on in the old sweater vest and things like that. But I mean,
Cosby Show you're talking about.
Cosby Show you're talking about. Bill Cosby was
I
on
agree
TV.
with you that that's wrong. I do.
Yeah.
But I'm not buying this.
Give me
liberal
back Dukes of
logic
Hazzard.
thing. By the way, I know the president of the company who owns those shows. He ain't no liberal, so it's not liberal logic.
It
It
the
is
fact that-
wrong, however.
Why are they not crying for him to come
You're
off the
right.
air?
It's wrong.
They were
I'm
crying
with
for the
you.
Dukes of Hazzard to come off the air.
Well, I don't think anybody really was crying for that, but it
lot of
happened,
people
and it
were
was
crying for
stupid.
that.
There wasn't any public outcry for the
there
Dukes of
wasn't.
Hazzard to go off the air.
Oh, there was a very small but loud minority from the liberal side was like, oh, it's got a
I never
Confederate
heard it.
flag on the roof. We have to get rid of it. It's Southern pride. It's gone.
Hey, dude, I'm in the union. I get the emails, and I never heard the cry.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen tons of Facebook posting, tons of
Really?
Twitter. Oh yeah, absolutely. People wanted
I've seen it
gone.
since, like, oh, you know, this probably is a good thing that we need to erase it
Yeah, I didn't
from
hear
all
anybody
memory.
Oh, it was,
basically.
for that.
but that's what they do. That they have these very small minority. They, as in the liberal,
They.
your people. They have, and they'll shout out and they'll scream from the high heavens, and then everything has to change because they're offended.
It's unbelievable. I still can't get over the fact of my favorite show growing up, but now I have to. I can watch it on YouTube.
I was a
by
bigger
now.
fan of the Jessica Simpson remake.
Were you really?
Really?
It's my time.
Yeah.
Because he's young.
Good
Yeah.
point.
Still
Listen,
appreciate
Jessica
older
Simpson's
good
really-
Wasn't
quality.
Stifler in that?
Stifler and
Yeah.
Johnny Knoxville. It was
Yeah.
great.
Okay,
Moonshine,
we're now
Jessica
gonna have a
Simpson, and
conversation.
Yeah, we
Confederate
are
flag.
really
About
drifting
the
here,
Dukes
guys.
of Hazzard
Let's get back
movie.
to some substantive point. I'm
Yeah,
a fan
quickly.
of neither show. The idea that Dukes of I know, horrible,
said.
apostasy. The fact that
Leave.
that show was pulled because people lost any sense of context around the Confederate flag is beyond crazy.
Yep.
It's just
I agree.
beyond
Thank you.
crazy.
Biggest
I agree.
overreaction of the month, no
I
question
agree.
about it. Anyway, let's shift gears, shall we? See how I did
Right.
it? The Clinton campaign finds itself on the defensive over the way it tried to control press access at a 4th of July parade in New Hampshire. You have to see this. Reporters were literally lassoed. They were surrounded by a moving rope line to keep them away from Clinton as she interacted with the crowd. Here's how a Clinton spokesman explains it.
But what we tried here was, you could do a thing where you preset press along the way, and
Right.
we said, let's just have it be open. That's how we did in other parades, and
Right.
see what happens. And I think I wasn't there, but I saw some press reports that described it as chaotic. And so they put the, so put the rope up to keep so that the parade could continue and she could be able to talk to voters.
Rick, the dreaded O word has reared its ugly head. That even liberals, no one can explain this in any capacity. This is a seasoned politician
No,
with the
not a
best team in the
seasoned
business,
politician.
apparently. Well, no, she ran for president in
Yeah, I
2008.
know,
She won the Senate. What I'm saying is
A
this
seasoned
team,
politician would know better, you would think. Unbelievable.
there's a precedent, too. You could put people in the back of a truck, basically, like they do during the marathon.
You don't even
just
have
film
to
it that
do
way,
that.
you're done.
I don't know how to break this to Hillary Clinton, but there's actually been politicians who have walked in parades before, and they found a way to deal with the press without using rope to lasso them in. Here's how it works, Hillary. Should have come up again. And you won't have to send me a check for this. You talk to the press before the event, or you talk to the press after the event. You make that deal with them so they'll let you walk in the parade. It's been going that way since parades and politicians began. This is so outrageous and so embarrassing that it's actually funny.
It is funny and
Funny
sad.
is one word for it. I only have one disagreement with you on Rick. With you on this, and that is that talking to the press before and after seems to be as objectionable to this candidate as anyone else.
Talk to the
So
press at
there's
all.
no possibility
I
she
agree.
can follow your advice. I want to add another O word to this, and I think it's why she should be nervous, because she really doesn't get it, to use a phrase that she likes to use. And it's not optics, it's oligarch. Hillary Clinton believes that she is entitled to the presidency. And that's why she cannot imagine that engaging the press or the public meaningfully is actually part of this process.
I
And
don't
that's what
think
she's going to
that's
get
true.
caught by every single time.
I don't think
every
that's
time.
true. I don't think that's true. And by the way, Jessica Palmieri, who we just watched on TV, she's got experience in this. She was head of communications in the President administration. She worked in the press office in the first Clinton administration. She knows better. Hillary's not listening.
Here's the thing about Jennifer Palmieri. I don't think she realizes that there's Instagram and there's YouTube and there's all these social media mechanisms that this got out in a hurry.
She
comes off
and all
arrogant.
their campaigns
Very
that might not have happened.
We'll have a conversation about
ahead.
her after.
Very arrogant. She comes off.
Hillary or Jennifer?
Hillary.
Oh,
Okay, so what do you think about Hillary Clinton lassoing reporters? Well, go to newsmaxtv.com/comments. Oh, by the way, Hillary is doing her first major interview
Tomorrow.
on CNN.
At a rodeo?
And the the
softball
interviewer, Breonna Keller, just happened to attend a wedding of a top Clinton aide. So it
Softball
already
questions.
stinks to high heaven even
that's
before it
unfair.
goes.
That's unfair criticism.
Okay, let's
People have
continue it after the
friends.
break. I'll let you get a shot in there. So speaking of the break, we'll be back in just a moment.
We are not yet where we need to be on several of the most difficult issues. And the truth is that while I completely agree with Foreign Minister Zarif that we have never been closer, at this point, this negotiation could go either way.
And welcome back to the wrap. That was Secretary of State John Kerry, that's Marie Harv's boss, on the down-to-the-wire talks over Iran's nuclear program. The new deadline is tomorrow. Tennessee Senator Bob Corker, chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee, has some big concerns.
We've gone from dismantling their program to managing proliferation. I mean, that's the biggest concern. That's already done. But right now we have the issues of, are we going to have anytime, anywhere inspections? Will we know what their past military dimensions were? It's very important.
And to further complicate matters, Tehran is now pushing for the end to the UN arms embargo on Iran, a parallel deal that the United States opposes. Is the U.S. giving away too much, Carl Higbee?
Why would we even bother negotiating with them? We can't have them have a nuke. You can't let that happen. So we should just say, no nuke, no enrichment, no centrifuges, not 20%, not export, nothing.
You're the Trump of negotiation. I like
Yeah.
it. Brad?
Look, what worries me is when I see the Secretary of State stand at that microphone and say it could go either way. Every fiber of my body hears him saying, no, we've made the deal. No, we've made the deal. I have to message it could go either way because I've got to build credibility for the fact that there's only one acceptable outcome. And that's the issue here for me. I actually believe negotiating with enemies is what you do. You do negotiate with your enemies. That's how peace is made. But you don't negotiate with the starting premise that no matter what, you have to get a deal. That's not a negotiation. That's a fire sale on global security.
You don't negotiate with your
There's-
enemies. You kill your enemies. You negotiate with your foes.
Well, I agree
that's
with
a
Brad on
philosophical
that.
distinction. It's a distinction
I
without a
agree
difference.
with that if you ever want to have peace. But there's another way you can look at it when the secretary, I'm not saying your way is wrong, But the other way you look at it when the Secretary of State says it could go both ways is he's sending a message to Iran. We're not going to do this if you don't come around. So it could be either. You don't really know. Just like we don't really know at this point what's in this potential agreement. We got to see it before we can. I will say I think you're seeing more and more of the country turn against the idea. I like the idea of finding a way to stop their nuke and making a deal. I'm getting somewhat sour on it, I have to admit. I was talking to a political guy, Bill Gallagher. I think you know Bill.
A nice guy out of Jersey. Yeah,
yeah, and he feels that we shouldn't do the deal, that it's not coming together. We'll see. You know, we will either know in the next few days or not. One thing I would caution, this deadline thing bothers me. Either get it right, but don't worry about when you get it. If you can't get it right, don't do it. But enough with this deadline stuff.
Yeah, well, there is no deadline, and the longer we talk, the more they enrich, the more research they do. So the whole thing is crazy. And I think you're right. We don't know what's in the deal, but here's what we do know. Every so-called red line that has been established by the administration to this point has been passed.
It has.
Right. So while you're absolutely right that we don't know, and in the end, the last-minute deal could bring some of that back. But to the extent that past performance is an indicator of future performance, it don't look great.
If Iran gets a nuke, they will use it, and they're going to use it on Israel. They've said that. They've said it. And we have to also,
or at least use it for blackmail.
Yeah, or that. But we have to consider also the fact that, you know, they are many months ahead of where we think they are, because we keep finding new parts of this of their facilities.
Well, that's the thing about this. They get to keep their centrifuges. They get to keep the plutonium reactor. So basically, this doesn't really do anything. It's got no teeth. No.
You know, one
Rubio
thing
said it guarantees them a nuke.
But one thing I do have to point out, because and I know people get mad at me for saying this because it's the old, you know, well, Bush did this, you know, it's not what I'm doing. But remember, when the last administration came into power, they had 2,000 centrifuges. When they left power, they had 26,000 centrifuges. So Republicans have to stop with this. This is all Obama and we were great. Enough of that. I agree that anything that allows them to get a nuke is bad news.
Yeah.
But this, you know, this Obama fixation has got to stop, and we have to start looking at this objectively.
Do you think Israel will just ignore this? Let's say we do come to a deal, and Israel doesn't trust it at all, and Netanyahu has said as much. You think they would just act on their own if they had reliable intelligence that a nuke was close? In other words, again, the centrifuge is still going. The plutonium reactors, they said, you know what, screw the deal, we're just going to take them out ourselves. And then
much as I would love to answer that question, I don't think that I can. I can tell you where public sentiment is in Israel. It supports it, but it's kind of irrelevant, because in the absence of MOPS, in the absence of the kind of weapons which the U.S. would have to send to Israel to actually take out the known places where they're doing the enriching that will lead to a weapon, is impossible for Israel to do.
We also don't know every single area where they're enriching.
Right, that's assuming we actually know all the spots.
The good news is it's come out in the past few days that we may now have a weapon that could get to their heavily buried underground
the United States does. Those are the MOPS.
We didn't before.
But Israel doesn't.
Okay, let's do our traditional lightning round. There's a yes or no answer. Will a deal be made? You already have a yes on that one, correct?
I'm afraid the answer is yes. I hope the answer is no.
Okay, one word, Brad. It's not hard. Carl.
Yes, but they're going to violate it.
Okay, 5 words.
I think yes, too.
Okay, 3 words. See how that just slowly went down? Either way, I kept you
under
control.
Everyone can do better.
All right. We want to hear your thoughts on the Iran deal. Go to newsmaxtv.com/comments and let us know. Back with more in a moment. And welcome back to Daily Wrap. Well, the heat is on in Europe right now after Greece turned down the European Union's bailout plan on Sunday. With the euro dropping daily and stock markets around the world following suit, we now turn to Forbes.com contributor and regular here in the Daily Wrap, Bill Tucker. Bill, thanks for coming on.
You betcha, Joe. Yes, indeed. Greek voters did give a resounding no to the demands of the European bankers. And in doing so, they gave their prime minister a tremendous vote of confidence, because it was him, after all, who asked them to give them a no. What the vote means, or more likely will mean, isn't anything horrible. It's in a very direct way, it means nothing to America. We have very little in the way of an economic or trade relationship with Greece, and Greece's economy is less than 2% of the whole European economic zone. What the no vote does do is give Greece lawmakers and legislatures some leverage in negotiation with the bankers. The ball now goes over to the bankers' court. And they've been demanding increased austerity measures in return for even more money. But clearly, that hasn't worked. So the bankers now concede that point. Well, it's not likely they will do so publicly, and they don't have to. All they have to do is come to the realization that some money's better than no money, restructure the debt, and in return demand economic reforms. Everybody goes home happy because, after all, the debt needs restructuring. The bankers do not want Greece bailing out of the European zone. Everybody's stars are in alignment. So this no vote is more likely to mean something like, well, a shrug probably in the end. Personally, I could kind of get down with the idea, Joe, of Greece bailing out of the European Union, reclaiming the sovereign coin of its realm, but that might be just a little bit radical. However, I suspect that Mr. Rick Unger could do with a little radical.
Yeah, he could. Bill, it is radical, Rick Unger. I was very happy to hear you say that austerity hadn't worked, because clearly it hasn't. It's only pushed unemployment higher. Greece, like every other nation in the Western world, is a consumer-driven economy. Consumers don't have money in their pocket. Yeah. They can't buy products. Don't buy products. You don't make products. Nobody goes to work. But now I have a lot of questions based on that. For starters, sure, do you imagine that this teaches any lessons to other European nations who have decided to go the austerity route, including Great Britain, who doesn't like to consider itself European? Is there a lesson in that they should learn? And just as a follow-up to that, are you really sure that it has no impact on the United States when this is guaranteed to create instability in the euro, and we do a lot of business with the European Union? In fact, they're our #1 trade partner.
You've asked me a lot of questions.
I know.
First question is, there's a difference, okay, for all the liberals in the audience, there's a difference between austerity measures and financial irresponsibility. Yes. Greece has been financially irresponsible with its money. But you and I were talking about this earlier, Rick. The bankers, in the face of that irresponsibility, loaned more money. So they're culpable in this case, right, and they've got to answer up for that. Will it mean something dire for the United States? Well, let's see. Do I know another country that's got a retracted recession, high unemployment, and massive debt? I know a few, including this one, but I don't think anybody wants to create any instability here, Rick. I mean, that's the beauty of this, is that everybody realizes there could be some very serious stakes at hand here. So I think you're going to see the bankers sit down and go, okay, this country's got some resolve, they've got their voters behind it, we're going to have to make some concessions. I don't know what will happen, but I think they're going to have to.
So, Bill, does it bother you at all that if you know anything about European history, you know that Germany benefited immeasurably from having their debts forgiven following World War II? In fact, you know, it set up what we now call the German economic miracle, right, where the kids in the 50s and the 60s weren't forced to pay for the mistakes of their forefathers. Why is Germany trying to jam this down Greece's throat when Greece actually was one of the people who forgave their debts?
I don't know. That's a really great question, Rick, and I'm not even going to speculate on trying to answer it, but it's a solid point.
Hey, Bill, quick question for you, just for the average American sitting at home. Honestly, if my wife hears, my Uncle Bill hears about Greece, and why are they concerned? You mentioned before, it's 2% of the world economy. It's a small country. How does that affect people here in any way, shape, or form? In other words, why is this such a big story if it's such a small economy? How does it affect people here? Why should they be concerned in any capacity?
Well, yeah, but first of all, 1.8% of the European economy. It's even fractional when you get to world economies in terms of scale. But the reason that anybody should be concerned is for the reasons that Rick mentioned. If the bankers decide, no, you know what, it's not in our interest to forgive these debts, we're going to get it all back or we're getting nothing back, and they do it in the face of evidence, right, staring them in the face that it's not working, they're doing what Einstein would call acting insanely, because they keep doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different result. So if the bankers can come to terms and go, you know what, it's time for us to just restructure this, realize the reality of it, it probably will mean nothing to us, because it's in everybody's interest that it not mean anything to us. And we hope that bankers behave rationally in this case.
Okay, Bill. Well, we appreciate you joining. Bill Tucker, he's a Forbes.com contributor and a regular here on the Daily Wrap. Once again, appreciated. Coming up next, it's potluck time. This is the Daily Wrap, live from New York City. Please do not go anywhere. And welcome back to Daily Wrap. Well, before we jump back in, let's jump on board, shall we? Newsmax wants to send one lucky couple on a 7-day Silver Sea cruise to the Caribbean this winter. Obviously, a luxury cruise on the Silver Wind is a trip of a lifetime. To win, however, you have to enter our sweepstakes. Visit newsmax.com/sweepstakes to enter. That's newsmax.com/sweepstakes. Okay, it's potluck time, part of the show. We go around the table and share our favorite stories of the day. I am issuing an executive order and taking this all for myself. Well, not exactly. So, zip it. It would be unconstitutional anyway. Rick has a point. Anyway, zip it. And that's what the Oregon Bureau of Labor and Industry is telling the owners of Sweet Cakes by Melissa. Who are they? They're a bakery owned by Christians who refused to bake a cake for a lesbian wedding. And get this, on Friday, the state ordered the owners, Aaron and Melissa Klein, to pay, this is a lot of cakes, $135,000 in damages to the couple they turned away 2 years ago. And it gets even better, or worse. The state also placed a gag order on the bakers, stating under no uncertain terms, from speaking out over their refusal to participate in the bake wedding cakes or same-sex unions topic. Quote, this effectively strips us of our First Amendment rights, Mrs. Klein wrote on her Facebook page. According to the state of Oregon, we neither have freedom of religion or freedom of speech, unquote. Wow, you, Rick Unger, have upset some of your progressive friends with what you wrote in Forbes on this very topic.
I have. You know, this is so troubling. You know, look, at the end of the day, I've been a huge supporter of same-sex marriage. I think it's a right that these folks had all along and was due to be recognized, and thank goodness it finally was recognized. But I got to tell you, one right being recognized cannot come at the loss of a right of another American. That's not the way it works here. And the way Oregon handled this, to me, is absolutely reprehensible. First, they have financially ruined these two people for standing up for their own religious beliefs. Do I agree with what they did? Not particularly. I don't think they should do it, but guess what? It doesn't matter what I think. They're entitled to their religious beliefs. Could they have discriminated? Could they be using it as an excuse? Maybe they are, but we can't get inside their heads, and some things take precedence, and religious freedom is one of them. This is a very complicated problem, folks. It's not a simple one. You have rights on both sides of this argument, both of them deserving to be protected under our Constitution. We shouldn't have to choose between one or another. We got to find a better way, because what Oregon is doing is not the right way to handle this.
Brad, the troubling part about this, many troubling parts about this, as Rick just explained.
Right. Exactly.
Where exactly do you get $135,000 from? It's so arbitrary, and for a bakery, I got to believe that the revenues don't quite match the fine in terms of that kind of number. It's just
look, I haven't seen their books, but it strikes me as insane. And what's worse is that it's not even, as we talked about before we went on air, a punitive damage, which we thought it was. I went and checked. The hearing officer in this case actually claims these are legitimate emotional damages awarded to the two women. So the whole thing is completely out of control and completely inappropriate. It's insane.
But what about the potential damages for someone baking a cake against their religious will?
They don't count, and that's what's going on here. Because what's happened, and this is, Rick, what you mentioned, it's what's critical. We have turned a debate about expanding rights for all into a fight about who should own every inch of the American public square. And all that we've done, if this goes on, is trading a sense of needing to win everything by one segment of the society which refuse to recognize gay rights fully, for another group that says, what the triumph of gay rights means is the death of Christian rights. That it's bad when anyone needs to push anyone out of the public square to find their place. And if all we do is jump from one extremist understanding of that to another, we will have profited nothing in the long run.
Carla, you fought for freedom for this country as a Navy SEAL. I'm sure this is
right.
And as troubling to you as it is to me.
Absolutely, and I'm very public about not being fond of gay marriage, but look, if straight people get to suffer through marriage, gay people should too. So, no, but seriously though, so the fact of the matter is look, this is what happens when the government starts meddling in private business. As soon as you have a government or any type of entity stick their hand into a private business, says this is what you have to do, you get stuff like this. It's ridiculous. $135,000. I don't know where that fine came from, but it's. If they want to say that this is the damages for our wedding, fine, let them say that, but guess what? You can't put that on a bakery. It's just not fair. And also, freedom of speech. Let them talk about it.
I do want to sound a caution, and I agree with you, and I agree with Brett. I do want to sound a caution. There is some legislation that some of the presidential candidates are banding about that could be just as damaging. I understand their desire to protect religious freedoms in America. I get their intent, but some of this it goes too far. Let me give you, for instance, Orthodox Jews think it's wrong for women to wear pants. Should a woman be fired from a business that has an Orthodox Jew shareholder because she wore pants to work? You can take this all too far. That's why everybody has to grow the you-know-what up, sit down and work this out in a way that works for all sides.
Yeah. Grow you know what up. I have a feeling that's a letter between E and G.
Yeah, I'm not going to say it.
Okay, very good. All right, well, thank you all for giving us a complete echo chamber on that one. Just everybody agreeing. Well,
hell of an argument.
For a good reason, yeah, hell of an argument. Yay or nay is next. This is the Daily Wrap. And it's happy time, people. Welcome back to Daily Wrap. It's time for Yay or Nay. First up, suicide rooms are now legal in Switzerland. What the hell is that? The Swiss organization behind the rooms, they're called Exit, helps terminally ill patients end their own lives by administering lethal drugs, and is now opening up their second suicide room to meet the growing demands of patients without a home. Assisted suicide has been legal in Switzerland since the 1940s. Will assisted suicide ever be legal in the U.S., Brad Hirschfield?
Tragically, I think we might get there, but it'll be our fault if we do, for not having the important conversations about palliative care and hospice care for the terribly ill and the people who are suffering. By avoiding that conversation, we cede the whole conversation to extremists who will support this kind of stuff, and it's a terrible, terrible mistake. We've got to be able to, the word death panel should be banished. Let's really talk about how to end life respectfully and not terrorize each other with this issue.
Carl?
If I was stuck in a bed and relying on everybody else around me to care for me, I would either suck on a shotgun or want to go to one of these rooms.
Wow, so you're for that then?
I am for it.
Yeah, okay. Rick?
It'll be legal in some states, illegal in others. It will never be a national policy because it's health, general welfare, and safety. It falls under the express reserve to these states.
Wow. I'm almost with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you hate to see anybody suffer, and there should be...
I wouldn't want people to take care of me. So.
Right, right.
I
Boy.
have very good news for you.
You'll never take care of me?
You'll never do it. I want to be clear.
wants
There are ways to mitigate suffering that we have and can do that don't take us to the kind of disproportionate response of celebrating or allowing suicide.
But what about
and
the
that's what we've
person
got to
who
be
really
able to do.
can't? I mean, not everybody's
No one
capable
should ever
of
get
care.
to a place where this is the choice they have to make. And if we had good palliative care and good hospice care, no one ever would.
We have to move on. But yeah, I'm more in your camp, I think. Anyway, next, kissing babies and shaking hands could be things of the past. Candidates are now spending up to 2 hours, as Senator Rand Paul did last month, taking selfies with voters. You just lost my vote. Senator Ted Cruz, Lee never had it. Senator Ted Cruz has added an additional 20 minutes to the beginning and end of events for eager selfie takers. Jeb Bush even brings his own selfie stick to accommodate his 6'3" frame. And Hillary Clinton even helped out an older fan out by taking the photo herself. No rope was used on the subject. Will the 2016 election be known as the selfie election? Please, God, no, Rick Unger.
No, it won't be.
Thank God. Carl?
No.
Yeah.
No.
No. The echo chamber continues. Over 22 million people watched the U.S. women's national team beat Japan 5-2 last night and take home the FIFA World Cup trophy for the first time since 1999. What the ladies did not bring home, however, was the kind of cash usually afforded to the championship teams. According to the BBC and Reuters, FIFA will pay the U.S. women's team $2 million for winning the World Cup. But get this, after Germany won the Men's World Cup last year, the team took home $35 million. And men's teams that get eliminated reportedly receive up to $8 million for losing. Should women get paid as much as men in sports? Carl Higbee.
The women in female soccer are tougher than the men.
You bet.
Agreed?
Agreed.
Yeah, and here it should be driven by the market. This sport, women's sports of this kind, actually generates the appropriate amount of capital. They've earned it and they deserve it.
And they don't whine and cry when they fall down.
That's right. And by the way, the ratings for last night's awesome game were higher than any soccer match ever in the United States.
Including men's.
Including men's.
That's where the revenue comes from.
That's it.
Endorsements.
We're all agreeing. What the hell's going on? The 4th of July was Saturday, and of course, there was the annual Nathan's Famous Hot Dog Eating Contest. This year's winner was 23-year-old Matt Stoney, who ate a total of 62 hot dogs and buns. beating 8-time winner Joey Chestnut. Chestnut vowed to return next year to reclaim his glory. 62 hot dogs. Are there really any winners in these contests, Brad Herschel?
Well, since I thought it was not Joey Chestnut but Joey Concha, I'm much less upset now, so it's okay.
Wow.
Whoever wins, wins.
I can eat about 4 and then I'm done. Carl?
I'm 240 pounds and I can eat 18, and I was nauseated. I can't imagine what these
You
guys
did 18 at one point, though.
I did 18.
Wow. Breaking news. Go ahead.
My first of the week, I so don't care.
I knew it. I knew you were going to say that. So you don't even watch it. It's a fascinating. I watch
show.
it every
What is
year.
fascinating about Jimmy? I mean, I guess Nathan's wins.
Well, you know what the fascinating part about it is? It's never the fat guy that wins.
Nope.
They're
No,
always
that's true.
small and
That's
they're
true.
skinny, and I guess where does it go? I don't want to know where it goes.
I
think
don't
I
wanna
know.
know.
I know where it
Don't wanna
goes.
know.
No.
Right. Okay. Well, we're flushing this show down the toilet tonight. Thank you for joining. I'm Joe Concha. Thank you, panel. Newsmax Prime with J.D. Hayworth. That's.